everyone. I'm Michaela Parker, founder and executive director of the Alliance for Data Science and AI, or ADSA, and I'm here to welcome you to our Listen and Lunch AI webinar series, where we bring you experts from around our community to share their approaches to incorporating AI in teaching and research in higher education. Today, we are welcoming Eric Ford, who will talk with us about building faculty capacity for AI, lessons from Penn State's Upskilling Fellowship. But first, a quick reminder, this event, like all ADSA events, is governed by the ADSA Code of Conduct, which you can find linked at this QR code, and it's also in the footer of our website. And briefly, for those of you unfamiliar with ADSA, we are a community of data science and AI leaders, practitioners, and educators who believe in a just, equitable future where data science and AI are thoughtfully applied in all domains for the benefit of all. You can learn more about our events and activities on our website, which is linked also at this QR code on this slide, and there's also the URL there. Okay, so today we welcome Eric Ford, a leader in the intersection of data science and astrophysics, with a focus on characterizing the architectures of planetary systems. As a distinguished professor of astronomy and astrophysics at Penn State, Eric's research group adapts and applies methods from Bayesian statistics and machine learning to improve the analysis and interpretation of exoplanet surveys. As the director of research for the Institute for Computational and Data Sciences, Eric oversaw the design of the Faculty Upskilling Fellowship program, which he will tell us about today, a strategic initiative created to support Penn State faculty looking to grow their skills in AI and/or quantum sciences. So welcome, Eric. Great to have you here. So as college campuses race to integrate AI across research, teaching, and administration, a growing challenge is how to support these faculty in developing and deepening the skills that are needed to engage meaningfully with these technologies. So as we start, can you briefly describe the Penn State's Faculty Upskilling Fellowship program for our audience and how it addresses some of these challenges?
Right. So we talked to faculty in our Institute for Computational and Data Sciences, both leadership, our new faculty, and said, what are the barriers to you incorporating AI in your research? And the most common response we got was time. I wish I could, I want to. If people wanted to, we're like, what knobs can we turn? And so we said, well, we can help support arranging to buy out a little bit of time, getting a teaching release for semester so you can put some concentrated effort into growing your AI data science skills. Actually, our first year, it was focused on AI and quantum sciences. And this most recent call, we broadened it to include AI, data sciences, digital twins, quantum, as well. So it's computational sciences, so the whole spectrum. Most of the applications still are in AI, with a minority in the other areas. But regardless of which one, we want to help faculty add new capabilities to their research programs so they can harness these and ultimately be more successful in future calls for external funding. And so we got started with a first semester. Most of the faculty did request a teaching release. Some didn't. Some actually said, I have a sabbatical or a semester off because I double taught coming up, and asked for additional resources to make good use of that time. So we want to make sure we both provide the time and any little things that might make them the best use of that time. So obvious things are computing resources, some cases maybe a little bit of travel or participating in a formal education program. And so it's really just trying to help our faculty who are already AI eager to be able to convert on that and help them have what they need to realize that.
That's fantastic. So I imagine maybe teaching release was a challenge, especially for some departments. Did that take some negotiation and,
Yeah, so Penn State is organized. We have colleges that, of course, have the educational mission, and then we have several interdisciplinary institutes that are sponsored by the Office for Vice President for Research. And so, our domain is research. We don't have control over deans, but we can say, if your department head and dean are supportive, then we can provide the money so that we can make it happen, right? And so the institute's job was not to negotiate for you. You had to get approval from your dean, make sure it wasn't going to impact their teaching needs. So we required a letter from the department head or dean saying they were supportive and how they would fill the teaching needs, because we kind of have a boundary constraint of we can't be compromising the teaching mission.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And just to be clear, this fellowship was primarily or is primarily for research, right? There's I'm sure, other engagements on campus for supporting faculty to use AI in teaching.
Yes, I mean, there's many different comprehensive research university, right? So we have every college is doing something related to AI, several centers and groups. The teaching and learning with technology group runs seminars, and there's lots of activities being organized by many groups, and this is not meant to displace anything. Everyone's still encouraged to participate in whatever makes sense, whether it's a domain-specific reading group or a teaching pedagogy with AI type group that spans the entire university. So all those are happening in parallel. But sometimes when you start with one of those, you realize you want to explore more, but you need the time to do it. And so if that happens, we wanted to support it. As you mentioned, because this is funded by our Vice President for Research Office, that means the primary emphasis needs to be on bringing up your research group competitiveness for future calls. At the same time, I mean, graduate education, research university, we hope that what you learn and enhance your research group does trickle back down to the classroom or graduate training as well. So we certainly see that as a side benefit, even though it wasn't supposed to be the rationale in your proposal.
Oh, that's really a great perspective. I like that. Yeah, like bring that research and what you're learning to the classroom if you can as well. So let's dig in a little bit more to the program details. What resources did you need to start this program, and how are you envisioning it could be sustained in the future?
Right. So perhaps the most challenging parts are figuring out how to nudge faculty in the right direction. So there was a fair bit of work on the early stage from institute leadership, talking to co-hires and trying to figure out, what would make this work. And we brainstormed things like, should we have a mentorship requirement? Should we make that an option? Should we have how should you give back? After you've done this, how should you share information with us? So we thought, brainstormed lots of ideas. In the end, we kind of just listed examples of like, you could do any of these, and left it to the faculty to propose, what in particular they would do. So someone might write a blog post about their learning experience. Someone else might give a seminar, right? And so at the moment, because it is getting started, we're still fairly flexible in how each of those elements is there. But we wanted to see things like both a technical plan for like, what would you be learning, and also a learning plan for how are you going to learn it. And then how is that going to translate to enhancing your research program? So setting up those things took a little bit of planning. And then of course, logistics, reviewing proposals, right? That means you have to have someone who can run that process. And then on the financial side, so a fair bit of staff time to make things work. In the end, we did about 20 awards that ran a little over 300K. So it in the grand scheme of things, we think it's a pretty great value. If you can, make a faculty member 10% more competitive for the next 5 years, like that's an enormous win. So we hope that we'll be able to have an outsized impact on that investment from our Vice President for Research Office, and that they're pleased enough with the outcomes that they'll keep funding it. So another aspect of that is being able to track things. So we're trying to set up processes so that as people do propose and get awards selected, we can point back to this and see if it works as well as we hope it will.
That's great. And I know I didn't I didn't warn you ahead of time I was going to ask this. So I'm putting you a little on the spot here, and it's fine if you don't know it off the top of your head, but I'm just curious because this is under the VPR. And so do you have a sense of the first, I think you said 20 awards? Mm-hmm. What kind of the breadth is across the university? What are the disciplines that you're touching with this program?
Yeah, it was very broad. We had HVAC optimization, urban planning, quantum materials, trying to choose materials, proteins and things, acoustic propagation, drug discovery, like AI for simulating student interactions to combat bullying,
wow.
mining, planning, logistics of mining operations, analyzing news stories about governmental, issues. So it spanned the entire university. People from, I forget the number of colleges, but several colleges were represented, not just your computer science, type regime. And so I think that another challenge in this is, we phrase as upskilling, and that can mean different things, right? So if you're in computer science, you're assuming you're going to start from a much higher point in this journey before you have something like this. Whereas if you come from a field that traditionally is not computer science heavy, and maybe you have a little data science experience, but realize you need to go the next step to keep up with the times, they might be learning fairly basic things, right? And so in the evaluation process, there's, figuring out how to structure that right. And so I'm sure there's some faculty who, maybe their first time didn't hit quite the right balance, and we hope we'll try again. And as we learn both from the experience of the participants and maybe the applicants learn from previous proposals, we hope that we'll be able to hit an increasing swath of the university and touch on as many colleges as want to.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so I wonder, was that kind of variability in faculty experience with these technologies, was that kind of one of the underlying drivers for why to do a fellowship rather than, we see a lot of universities as they're trying to grapple with bringing AI to campus, launch workshops or short courses, but in those cases, right, there has to be some level setting. And so I wonder if you could talk just a little bit more about why you chose to go this route of a upskilling fellowship rather than relying on some of those other like external training options.
Right. I mean, so some of the faculty proposed, I want to take this course. And sometimes it was a YouTube list that was totally free. Other times they wanted a paid, thing. And so again, our philosophy was, we're not experts in this. It's changing so fast. We don't even know all the options, right? Between AI and quantum, we want faculty to tell us what they need and then try it and then let us know what worked well. And so, of course, the university has workshops on AI and convolutional neural networks, and they have courses on these things. And so all those resources still exist. Some faculty said they were going to audit an existing class, right? And that probably is totally appropriate for some faculty who would benefit from a undergraduate machine learning class. And so when that makes sense, I mean, yeah, do it, right? That's what we want you to do. But other times research needs to be very specific, right? So it can be like, well, I don't need a broad AI training in everything if I'm trying to implement one method for my problem, right? And so if you have a research problem, you have something in mind and you want to explore two methods, maybe a class that's going to give you a survey of many things isn't a good match for that. And so the hope was that when existing resources, either by Penn State or somewhere else, were available, people would find them and make that part of their learning plan. But when someone said, you know what, I'm going to have to read papers and, dive in, that can be what it meant for other people. And so there was some differences. You typically see the computer scientists, the statisticians, the mathematicians, more on I have very specific plans of a very detailed method. And you might see someone coming from a liberal arts or something saying, I want to learn some of the fundamentals of AI, right? And so there was a variety of applications, and we try to, hit a breadth so that everyone could grow where they are on their AI journey. And I think part of it is it's going to change so fast. I mean, if you set up something, I don't know, if you teach calculus, you can get really good at teaching calculus and perfect it, right? And there's value in perfecting it. But if you're trying to teach AI, if you put a lot of effort into a class this year, next year you're probably going to change some things, right? And so the cost benefit analysis of lots of prepared materials may, at least for a little while longer, still err on the side of letting people develop custom things. And we're hoping some of our folks will report back and may contribute to, giving, whether it's just a one-off seminar or maybe organize a few of them so that eventually we might have some more formal training opportunities emerge out of this. But I can think in some domains, the jargon is just really impenetrable. And if you have someone in your own domain, using examples that you understand, then you can focus on the AI part instead of, I'm trying to understand phenotypes and genotypes and samples and all these other stuff that's not what I normally do. And I'm distracted from the AI content, where someone says, okay, you're an astronomer, I can translate that to planets and stars. Then that stuff comes easy to me and I can learn the new part. And so in some sense, some of these faculty may become our ambassadors to their home departments of, I can help you understand what would make sense to add AI literacy to our major program. We're trying to have AI throughout the university. Every major needs to have some element. Well, who's going to do that? And so you don't just need computer scientists, you need someone in every department who can say, I'm going to help figure out how to map university very broad goals of AI literacy onto what that means for our majors. And so hopefully this will help broaden the set of faculty who can contribute in that sort of way as well.
I love that. I love that version of scaling with ambassadors and champions. I mean, that's really powerful. And I'm really happy to hear that's the direction you're hoping this all goes. And so I guess I want to just return just very briefly to this idea of a self-designed learning model, because you really are reaching faculty where they are. But it sounds like your application process was really flexible, that they could almost propose nearly anything. So I'm wondering if there were some guardrails, maybe like around budget or things like that, that you had to consider.
I don't think we actually gave a budget cap. So you know, we kind of wanted to see what faculty wanted to do the first time. In the end, probably the prototypical plan was some fraction of time on foundational self-study, right? They were going to, try the Qiskit tutorials that IBM provide for Intro to Quantum, or some Andrew Ng's deep learning course on Coursera, or some learning something. They have a plan for that, and then some part of like prototyping and some application that mattered to them, right? So maybe I'm in astronomy, I want to apply it to analyzing spectra of stars, so I'm going to try this method that I learned about, apply it in my case, and encounter problems, and then at the sort of towards the end, figure out how to integrate that into a proposal or whatever comes next. Some people took a variety of other approaches. Mentorship, some had someone lined up, and that was great. At the moment, some people would ask, like, can you provide a mentor? It's like, well, no, you kind of need to find one yourself. I'm hoping in 2 years we'll have some previous folks and go, oh, someone in your department or college did this before, and either they might themselves be willing to, or maybe they can help serve as a friend-to-friend algorithm to find someone that might be a good fit for you. So I think that's one thing that for the moment we're like saying good luck, but several people did include a plan to meet with someone every other week or month or something to help keep them on track, and that was a good common element. Some people had things like reflective journaling to keep track of. I think that was a suggestion, not a requirement, but several people are trying that out, and so we'll be curious to see if that provides a good resource for the future calls. So we didn't really give constraints. One area where sometimes people would be a little bit overly ambitious was sometimes they'd ask for computing resources that seemed like a big round number. And I mean, you can understand if you're just getting started, you don't really know how much you're going to need because you've done this, so you make something up. So in cases where it seemed a little bit arbitrary, we said, well, let's give you a starter allocation. When you've used half, and you can make a benchmark in a real plan, get back to us. And if it turns out you really do need, 10 times of the starter allocation, we can swing that for some folks. But we're not just going to hand out, blank checks to everybody just because they don't know what they want. So we did trim some of those. A few people put in a lot of travel, and we're like, you pick one of those meetings for now. And so it's like a few people push the limits, but for the most part, I mean, the core part of it really was the time and the learning, and those things were meant to be, we don't want to invest in your time and have you struggling to find a GPU. That just doesn't make any sense, right? And so it's like, let's make sure we can take care, get you started. And once you're making progress and you realize you need a little more, then maybe we can make a more customized plan for, AI API credits or something was a common one, where who knows what you'll actually end up using. And probably the best way is to get started. And after a couple of months, let us know what the derivative is.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I do want to return to the question of infrastructure, but I just saw a question in the chat that's like perfectly aligned with what we're talking about right now. So I'll just read it really quickly. This sounds like a great program, very inclusive of all disciplines. It must have been challenging evaluating applications. Can you share more about your approach for evaluating applicants fairly, given their differences in experience with AI?
Yeah, so I think one challenge was getting the wording right in the call, and that's important for 2 reasons. One is to communicate to people, yes, we want you to apply, or no, we don't, right? And so, for example, the emphasis on research was something that some people said, I want to do it for teaching. I'm like,
Mhm.
sorry, that's not really what we're funding. You can apply, but realize, if that's how you spin it, it may not have the best chances, right? And so I think communication is important. So we tried to communicate that we were trying to upskill regardless of where you were starting. That said, I mean, if someone hasn't done linear algebra yet, it's going to be a hard sell, right?
Mhm.
Whereas if someone's already an expert, it's also going to be a hard sell. So I think the sweet spot was probably, if there was a bias, it was probably people in the middle, because they
Mhm.
were really best positioned beforehand. We had a process where we have several folks in ICDS leadership who could assist with kind of the synthesis of the reviews. So trying to get multiple ad hoc reviews. Sometimes it was from a domain expert. Sometimes it was from a computer science statistics type expert. In the ideal case, we got one of each for each proposal. You can imagine there's always rushes and things. So sometimes we'd like ask for 3 reviews to get 2, and so the usual game of getting faculty to do things on schedule is always a challenge. But yeah, I think it's probably allowing time, a couple of weeks, and then realize every step, you ask for reviews, someone declines a week and a half in, and then you want a replacement, and the next person needs a couple of weeks, right? And so it seems when you're making this, it's all the time in the world, but in practice, every step, giving people a reasonable amount of time means that it just takes a while. So one of the things
Yeah.
we actually did the second time is we set a schedule of, and then worked backwards. And so actually our second call isn't a year from the first one, because we're allowing a lot more time in the review process
Mm.
so that we can make sure we have both reviewers who are coming in with expertise in the domain to see if it makes sense, reviewers with expertise in AI or machine learning or whatever, and then someone whose job it is to compare across proposals and make those sorts of comparative evaluations.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I was promised I was going to talk about infrastructure, but another question came in. We just were talking about applications, so I want to go ahead and hit this one. What, if any, resources were offered for application and proposed learning plan preparation? Also, how competitive was the fellowship? So, how many applicants versus acceptances did you have this cycle?
Yeah, so the first cycle, it was over 40 applications and about 20 awards. So we did about half.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Certainly not a gimme, but also I think funded quite well. And then the second call, we actually had uh, 25 applications, so a few less. I'm hoping that's because many of the most eager people, already were selected. I
They
wouldn't
came in the first one.
Yeah, and we also
Yeah.
did it kind of quickly. One other challenge, I guess, was some people like to plan really far in advance. If you're working with your department for oh, we need to find a teaching replacement, and so even though we've selected proposals, many of them are for next semester, right? And
Hmm.
so they haven't yet gone through things. So, but I was actually surprised no one was planning 2 years out. People were planning 1.5 years out,
Hmm.
and so. Yeah, I think that anyway. So we're hoping to be able to fund a significant fraction again. Always, everything's contingent on budgets. But at least for the moment, we're hoping that it'll be limited. Not in an NSF type situation of 15% or something funding rates, because there's a little. I mean, it's some work to put these together, and we want faculty to feel like they have a decent chance, so they'll keep trying in the future. I feel like there's another
So what
Catholic
about the
question I
learning?
left
Yeah, it
out.
was the if there were any resources for
Hmm.
pre-application, so a learning plan preparation document, something like that.
In the first cycle, no. It was
Mhm.
the bullet point of things you might include.
Yeah.
For the second cycle, we picked some of the stronger applications and said, hey, can we share yours as an example? And
Mm.
posted those for people to look at. And yes, I think hopefully some of them got some ideas from that. And as we get more, hopefully we'll be able to have more exemplary ones to share. And I think we picked maybe an engineering, a life sciences, a physical sciences, a social science. So we tried to get one from each of a few corners. But I mean, you can
Right.
imagine that's still very, very sparse, right? And so we might try to build that out a bit more. I guess the other thing is even though we're doing the second call, and I could say we've learned some things from the selection process, we haven't yet had people finish, report back what worked well, demonstrate that they got increased grant funding as a result of it, right? So we haven't done the full cycle yet. So I
Mhm.
saw someone else ask in the chat what will be success. So I think
Right.
we'll ask, kind of 2 years out, what was different because of this, right? And ask for them to just say what was different. And then for 4 or 5 years or so, like, okay, were there any new grants that related to AI that came out through that? So, I mean, one of the simple things is just like setting up a process for assigning numbers so that you can track these things and communicate, like little logistical stuff, details, so we can tell, from all our seed programs, what's impacting. I mean, as a research university in your ideal world, there's other positive benefits other than just grant success, but dollars can be counted and they do matter. So
Right.
I think things like successful proposals, people putting AI into a proposal within their own domain, I would point to as a positive outcome, even if it's not a AI proposal, and even if the funding rate is only 25%, but the base rate was 15%, so that sounds pretty good, right? So yeah, I think we'll want to look both for the soft indicators. People will either tell us, taking a Coursera course sounded like a great idea, but in the end, there was a motivation challenge, or there wasn't the right audience, and so I would suggest people do something different, or they'll say it was great, and I don't know which it'll be, right? And so I think as time goes on, and we can say 3 people have tried this course, here were the 2 positive reactions, here's a negative one, we may be able to provide more inputs during that process of designing your learning program. I could also imagine running like a panel or something for applicants where they can ask questions of some people who have been successful before, but we need to have some people who've gone through the full process, I think, before we pull that one up.
Yeah. That's the tough part, right? Especially if you're looking to sustain the program and you need to show a return on investment. I had a slight tweak to exactly that Bonnie's question about how do you measure success. So you've already stated a few ideas for metrics to show this kind of proof of value so that you can sustain the program. And it is tough because you have to wait for that lag for the right. Did that actually impact proposals? Something I've done in the past is just collect testimonials. That's a great, of course. Are there any other metrics you can think of right now that you're looking at for the next round?
I mean, we also ask for things like publications and students. They're, if you're advising a student and using it, so those are things we'll ask for self-reporting on. And can. Another thing we can point to, it's not all about the money, it's about students, it's about getting the results in literature, but we'll collect all of them and see what's working and what needs to be tweaked.
Great. Okay, I totally lied because we're running out of time, so I'm going to skip questions about infrastructure. You a little bit touched on it, that folks can request GPUs. I do want to just ask as we wrap up, and I know there's one more quick question in the chat, but I'm going to ask, are there any design decisions? I know you've only been through like 1.5 of these calls now, but are there any design decisions that you would change?
So one of the challenges we had was who is eligible, right? And so the first time we took the easy route of a job title, tenure track faculty, and some people are like, well, I'm faculty, I've been here a long time, what about me? And it's tricky because we do have, I think we want people who are going to be at Penn State long enough to have a return on investment. And we want people who are going to be writing proposals. And so the second cycle, we tried tweaking the wording. We changed it to people who have been faculty for at least 3 years and been the PI on at least one external grant, trying to align the eligibility requirements to what we actually wanted a little better. It's a more confusing message, and so the number of emails went up, but hopefully, it'll prove worth it if we're able to reach not only the tenure track faculty, but also our non-tenure line faculty, who in many cases also would benefit from upskilling in AI, and some of whom are very active in research and have funding program profiles just as well as some of our tenure track faculty. So hopefully that will brighten out a little bit. I feel like there was one other item on, we also originally was AI and quantum, right? And those were 2 strategic priorities identified, and we still communicate that was our priority, but we did open it up so that people in other areas relevant to the Institute for Computational and Data Sciences could apply, and we got a few from each. I think it was let's see if I can quickly find it. Maybe
so you're saying beyond AI and quantum, so to data science or other technologies.
So we got like 5 in digital twins, 6 in data science, 3 in computational sciences, as well as the AI crowd. So this year we might reach a little bit broader audience for that reason as well.
That's great. And I feel like you and I could keep talking for another half hour. I kind of wish we had maybe planned for an hour. To the question in the chat, yes, this is being recorded and we will share it with everyone registered and actually probably shout it out on social media. Last quick question, because it is in the chat. There is a faculty person who is interested in learning more and sharing beyond what this video with their faculty. There's a URL she's citing there.
Yep.
Is
Yeah,
that the
that's
correct
kind
one?
of the long
CDS?
version is an FAQ that, my philosophy was to get a kind of core document up that we'd leave set. And then as questions came in, just keep appending to clarify things and try to help with those deals. So check the FAQ for some of the implementation common questions that, we did get throughout the process.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good
reference.
reference.
We'll go ahead and make sure because I know those of you watching this on YouTube in the future will not know what I'm saying because it's a long URL. So we will make sure to add the URL to the description of the YouTube recording, and we will add it to the social media as we shout out this really great interview. Thank you so much, Eric. I think this is a ton of information. I hope you're okay with folks reaching out to you. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions and folks wanting to emulate this program. So congratulations, and I hope you continue to get funding for it. This was really great.
Thanks for organizing.
Awesome. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.